We now bring in our European Affairs editor, Armen Georgian. Armen, great to see you. Now, polls had Vox poised as kingmakers, but the far-right party fell short. What went wrong for them?
Yeah, well, we've had a statement today, Delano, from the head of Vox, who says today is a worrying day for us because we did not achieve our goal of expelling Pedro Sanchez from the government palace. Clearly, the Vox leadership acknowledging that it has not met expectations. It's lost nearly 20 seats in Parliament and lost about 3% of the vote nationally compared to the 2019 vote. And this has led to a kind of quite audible sigh of relief among centrist and left-wing political figures in Europe. We've heard reactions in France to this as well. Why did all of this happen? Well, it's one thing for Vox to have been part of certain city councils and enacting policies there, which obviously have proved controversial, like banning rainbow flags or removing references to violence against women and so forth. But it's clear that some voters really had a kind of thought twice about putting a party into government where it could shape the national conversation rather than just a regional conversation or in a city hall. And the left was also quite effective, it has to be said, at sort of mobilizing voters and saying that if people voted for Vox and if they got a national coalition that involved Vox, that would mean not just bringing a sort of reactionary policy into government, but also a return to the days of Franco, the dictatorship. So that was something that seemed to cut through because Spain is still very much under the legacy of the Civil War and the repression that followed for decades after the 1930s.
Which ended not too long ago, it has to be said. And we've heard in the aftermath of this vote from the pro-independence party over in Catalonia. What does that tell us about the possible coalition scenarios here?
Yeah, I mean, why should we even be listening to Catalan political parties when the main winner was the Popular Party, the People's Party? The reason is because the People's Party doesn't have mathematically as many coalition options as the Socialists do. The Socialists could, with a left-wing bloc and some of these regional parties in Catalonia, in the Basque Country, they could push a coalition over the line mathematically, in theory. Of course, it's the Conservatives that get the first shot at trying to form a coalition, as they did win the election, but they didn't win by enough. But because the other players and the possible kingmakers, they know all of this, they're already sort of positioning and jostling in a sense in case the first attempt at forming a coalition on the right doesn't work, and we come back to this idea of a left-wing coalition with the regional parties. So we've heard not just from, as you said, Delano, the ERC, the Republican left of Catalonia, which says if they support Sanchez, then Sanchez's socialists will have to, quote, respect Catalonia, unquote. But we've also heard from a more hardline party on the question of Catalan secession, which is called Junts, and it says that it will seek a window of opportunity created by this election to achieve Catalan independence. That's according to its general secretary speaking today. So we can see that if we do come back to this idea of another Sanchez government, we're going to be looking at some real polarization in Spain, because obviously the question of Catalan independence means perhaps going back to the whole constitutional crisis of 2017, 2018, and right-wing voters will then say, well, we didn't have this whole election campaign and giving a victory to the PP, only to come back to square one of the situation as it was before, with Sanchez, as it were, making concessions to these parties that want to break up the Spanish state. So definitely I can see scenarios where polarization could potentially get more sharp.
We'll see how things pan out in the weeks to come. Thank you very much for that, Armen Georgian there.